Check my YouTube channel, subscribe, and share.
Welcome everyone to Kimberly Speaking podcast, and today we have a very special guest, Dr. DequiesLanier. She is the CEO of the We Suite, a coaching and consulting agency. Welcome, Dequies.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Kimberly, for having me here at Kimberly Speaking. I am ready for us to party.
All right, so let's get into it. Today's topic is going to be navigating the perfect storm.
Mhm,
So when you hear that, what comes to mind and what does that symbolize?
mhm, mhm. Okay, so let's do a little bit of background work with my trajectory because I think that will make it make sense. So I am in higher education. So I work in university life and I have for over a decade. And I also created We Suite, but I can get to that later. I can talk about how that came about. But throughout my entire life, I had a strong urge for creativity.
Okay.
So I will, for the sake of time, spare some of the details, but as a younger child, I was going to go off to do fashion design initially.
Okay.
And I changed that right when I was old enough to start, going to visit colleges and things like that. And
Mhm.
talk with my family about my goals. And long story short, I end up majoring in graphic design. So I actually
Oh,
got my bachelor's degree in graphic design. Really interesting path here. And so
yeah.
I did that, and I had an experience with my very first client actually before I graduated. And it was so transactional. And I said, no, that's not my personality. I like to help people. I like to help people. I like to learn people. I like to understand what makes people tick. And so
Mm.
like design, and I don't even think I talked to the client in person. And so it was
Oh,
just like
wow.
design, completed, send it through, another
Yeah.
colleague. I was still in school, but let's just call another colleague. And then they sent it on, sent me the check, and that was it.
Hmm.
And I thought, I don't know if I could do that for the rest of my life. So I got out of school. And at this point, I'd already been in school. And everybody who knows me knows that I am, when I set a goal, that's the path and I stick to it. I don't really like to deviate. Like, that's what it is. At that point, I'm a senior, I'm graduating. I minored in marketing. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm not going to redeclare a major here. So we got to make it work. So I decided, okay, well, maybe I will kind of take some extra classes under the School of Business, and I will maybe go into being a buyer. So that was another path, right?
Okay.
So from that, I then went on to look for jobs when I got out of school, which was a
Okay.
much, much more difficult task than what people tell you when you're that young.
Exactly.
Depending on, well, I say this, depending on the type of career you chose.
Okay.
Maybe not in certain health fields or things like that, or perhaps
Mhm.
becoming an attorney. I don't know. So anyway, I went on to work my very first job in the university. And at that time, I came in at entry level and I really worked my way forward from there. So I learned how to do almost every arm, of that particular department I was in
Mhm.
because I
Mhm.
started entry level and just kept getting promoted from there. And every time,
Okay.
this is how God shows you that you wants you to do what you're doing, because every time I may have had thoughts of doing something else or leaving, other people would leave. Other people would leave, whether it was being let go, terminated, or
Mm.
leaving on their own free will.
Yeah.
Everybody around me was dropping like flies, and
Ooh.
I was still there. And I said, okay, Lord, and I'm very young. So at this point, I had not identified what I was going to do. So I
Okay.
said, all right, I'm not the type of person that can sit, I have to have goals. So I
Mhm.
got my master's degree, and that was in
Okay.
strategic communication, and I got promoted then. And people left, and they said, "Well, you're the only person left that can do this. So can you stay?" So it just kept going like that.
Yeah.
So from there, I ended up where I am to, and I'm cutting out a lot because we just don't have the time. Where I
Okay.
ended up in the role that I am in today, where I oversee the Georgia region for basically admissions and enrollment. And I do that
Okay.
for, several locations. And I was put into a very trying circumstance. So now we get into navigating the storm.
Okay.
Okay, so in this process, now if you recall, I said everybody kept dropping like flies, and
Yes.
I'm very transparent. I don't sugarcoat stuff. Not that much. So what I mean by that is, even by this next promotion that I would receive,
Mm-hmm.
it was our basically office manager. I like to call her office manager, but our
Okay.
admin assistant. I like to call her office manager because she run everything.
Okay.
And then it was my boss who had been promoted, and
Mm-hmm.
then it was me, and there
Mm.
wasn't anybody else, and we had a team of people. So I walked into getting promoted where I had to replace the entire new team.
Mm.
I had to,
Oh, wow.
fill seats. Day one of the job, I had to fill seats. Okay. All right. So that's part of it. And then the other part of it is that the other office that I was responsible for,
Mm-hmm.
on day one, I received paperwork. And I can't say certain things because I have to protect
Yeah.
the institution, but I received paperwork for that office to basically expand their operations.
Okay.
And what I will say is that I had to meet with a furniture vendor
Mm-hmm.
and decide what swatches for the furniture. I had to talk
Mm-hmm.
to faculty who were rubbed the wrong way because
Oh,
of a lot of things that was not effectively communicated in the transition.
yeah.
And so I walked into the emotional dumping session, which, hey,
Mm.
that's going to happen. Fair for them. They deserve for their voices to be heard.
Yes.
Uh,
Yes.
but this is what day one looked like for me. So
Mm.
start talking about navigating the perfect storm. We're talking about becoming a leader,
Yeah.
and becoming a leader where you have literally crisis at hand.
Mm.
And you've got to not only learn to become a leader, but you've also got to navigate that crisis while you're learning what it means for you to lead.
Yeah.
So you're not just deciding, how do I want to run the office? What procedures do I want to put in place?
Mm-hmm.
What processes were there before that maybe I want to change up and do differently to be more efficient?
Okay.
We're not talking about just that kind of stuff. We're
Yeah.
talking about you came in at crisis,
Mm.
and there was no team.
Oh gosh.
So you're hiring, you're training, you're teaching,
Oh,
you're coaching, you're dealing with backlash from folks who felt like they weren't communicated with appropriately for a
yeah.
change that was happening to their office. And there were a lot of changes that I can't discuss for,
Yeah.
the sake of the
Yeah.
institution, but a lot of changes. I mentioned the furniture and I mentioned the faculty because that gives you a little bit of context as to what was going on. Um, and I also was driving between these locations because they were not close. They were hours apart.
What?
Yes. So this is an introduction to what navigating the storm is about. And I'll tell you how I navigated that, but I want to kind of stop there and just say that's the precursor to what navigating the storm is about. I ended up, and I didn't mention getting that last degree, but I had mentors who were women.
Mhm.
I had,
Okay.
I had some men too, but mostly women, and
Okay.
they kept telling me, "It's something in you. You need to do this." And I laughed because
Mm.
I was going to be in the design world, and they tell me go get your PhD. Like, are you crazy? And so I ended up where God wanted me to be. And every time I
Yeah.
tried to exit stage left, he said, nope. Every single, and this went on, I told you, I've been there for over a decade. So this went on for a long time.
Mm. Oh my gosh.
And, you know, I work at other institutions too. So this
Mhm.
isn't my only, I have We Suite and I have other things too, but
Okay.
which you lay that on top of the navigating the storm because now
Mm.
you have your own small business to run too.
Exactly.
So we're not even getting into that. We're just dealing with the storm
Mm.
where everything is coming at you from every direction.
Yeah.
There's no staff, there's nobody to go ask, certain questions.
Mhm.
And I did have my immediate supervisor, but she took a new position.
Mhm.
She had her own stuff
Oh,
to be worried about. She had her own things to be learning. She had her own things to be trying to whip into shape.
yeah.
So literally, I'm figuring out how to run this ship, and there's nobody. So I'll stop there, Kimberly, for you to.
Girl, listen. You said so much. I don't even know where to begin. Okay, first and foremost, the transitions that you went through.
Yeah.
Number one, through the promotions. That's one thing. Then having to navigate taking over departments with no foundational reference resource, you
Mm-hmm.
know, oh my God, like I can't even imagine
Mm-hmm.
what that's like because transition in itself is hard, but you're talking about transition on top of transition on top of transition. So like this compounded, okay, your mental state. What? Girl, I'm just like, I probably been a mess. Well, describe for me how you kept yourself sane, how you prioritized, how you handled all of those challenges coming at you at one time.
Yeah. So, number one, I wouldn't say I kept myself sane. And I think that's something that emerging leaders, and I'm very passionate about talking to emerging leaders. No matter what age you are, you can be an emerging leader. If you've never been in a position to have to take on certain tasks, and I think we're all leaders in our own right. Let me say that because you don't need a title to be a leader. We know that. But there is a certain duty that comes with being in a leadership position, seated where you have to oversee, and take care of, a department.
Okay.
And so I think I would tell emerging leaders first that it do not assume perfection and do not assume that you have to keep it completely together. Now, you may have your come apart moments, but you have to manage where you are coming apart
Mm,
because
that's
you are also being looked at with a microscope. So you can't, I can't tell you that you won't have come aparts. I can't tell you won't be tired. I can't tell you won't be frustrated. I can't tell you that you might not even be somebody's personal punching bag, if not many people's personal punching bag. Not because they're targeting you, but they're
yeah.
targeting the situation that they have no control over. And you just happen to be available as the communicator of what's happening. They don't get to talk to other people that could be decision makers at the table. You are who they can presently see. So you might get some shots. So I would
Yeah.
not say that I kept it together. I will say that actually I experienced a very rough mental place
Mm,
a few years ago.
mm,
And I definitely was in therapy, so I would tell women to
yeah.
have a safe place, a protected, legally protected too, HIPAA
Yes.
safe
Yep.
place.
Absolutely.
Have a safe place. I would say that. I would say as an emerging leader, when you are having a come apart, know that that come apart cannot happen in front of the people that are already running like chickens with their heads cut off.
Mm,
So if
mm,
you have a new team, whether you inherited that team, whether you have seeded that new team, whatever the case may be, consider it. I like to refer to it as motherhood.
mm.
If the mother is falling apart, kicking and screaming on the floor? What is the child going to do? You know,
Exactly.
and that doesn't mean you don't hurt. That doesn't mean you can't, be emotional in front of your children. They need to see that. They need to see that you have heart. So your employees and team, they need to see you have heart. They need to see that you're emotionally moved by something that's not fair, that's not just. But you have to do that in a way that you still maintain control of the ship. So
Yeah.
so I'll say that's the first thing, is that you cannot pretend that it's going to be perfect and that you're not
Yeah.
going to have some struggles. And depending on your familiarity with crisis, some people may struggle more than others. And I say that because some of us may move into a leadership role and we may have not ever really had to struggle a little bit.
Yeah.
We can say that in layman's term in real life too, that if you never had to go through struggle, if you've never had, your bank account a little low,
Yeah.
you might not know what to do when that happens to you.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
True.
So now that everybody has me very clearly, um, I want to say that we have to understand that for some people stepping into that leadership role, you may feel the weight a little bit more than another person, but that doesn't mean you cannot do it. Doesn't mean you can't
Yeah.
do it. Doesn't mean you can't do it. You do need a support system. You need mentors. You need coaches. I will say
Mm.
that is what got me through my experience, is my trusted network that I could call, and not for them to just be negative Nancy's, throw more salt on the wound.
Yeah.
Somebody that can say your feelings are valid. This is absolutely a mess that you're experiencing, but now let's talk strategy. Which brings
Mm.
me to the next point. So I said that they need to see that you have heart, but not
Yeah.
completely lose your mind. And now I'm saying you need mentors because they need to help walk you through how to work through this thing and that strategy. So empathy and strategy.
Mm. That's good.
Those are the two things that you need in your tool belt if you're going to do this. If you don't have strategy, you don't know how to think forward, you can't think of solutions to possible issues that could arise, you can't
Mm.
scan the environment to see where there is a screw loose in your ship. If you don't have strategy, this might not work. I'm
Mm.
going to be honest. If you don't
Yeah.
have empathy,
Yeah.
you will be on that ship by yourself.
Yeah.
People will be jumping overboard.
Yeah.
So those are the two things. And I would say that I would like for emerging leaders to consider CPR. And I'm going to talk about that a little. I
Mm.
want them to think about CPR.
Mm-hmm.
When we think of CPR, we know that is to resuscitate someone who's not breathing. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We know that we deliver breaths, we pump on the chest, we look at the airway to make sure it's clear. That's what we do in CPR. Now,
Mm-hmm.
if we take that over to the leadership lens, the C, that's your crisis. We
Mm.
with the crisis. And in that crisis, I talked about the mother who can't be kicking and screaming on the floor and just completely forget that she had somebody to care for.
Exactly.
So in the crisis, see yourself as that mother. You can't pretend like it's not happening, because I've seen people do
Yeah.
this. I've seen leaders say, we're not going to address it. We just not going to talk
I
about
turn a
it.
blind eye.
You know, and when you do that, that doesn't help, because now
Mm.
people are creating their own narratives because of something you will not address. So now people are
Mm.
still in panic. They're still running around spreading gossip because you
Yeah.
refuse to address that there is a clear and present issue.
Mm.
So the crisis that you have to manage, you can't be the mother on the floor just totally beside yourself.
Yeah.
At some point, you got to get up and you got
Yeah.
to have some agency in you. And you got to
Mm.
say, I got to get control of this thing and I got to navigate this thing. So
Mm.
recognize with the C that you are in crisis and begin to do something about that. And then the P, okay, the P
Mm.
for CPR in this context is process. So now that
Okay.
I acknowledge that I'm in crisis, I need a process. What's going to be
Mm.
the strategy? Can't
Yeah.
acknowledge something's wrong. You gotta say, okay, how are we gonna fix this thing?
Yeah.
And, and with process, that means listening. If you
Mm.
or if you're not in my situation where I had to completely hire new folks, um, and there are people that are there, listen to them, listen to the younger ones, listen
Yes.
to the older ones, get
Yeah.
some advice. And even if it's not just getting advice, hear out everybody so you can see the things you don't see, because you can't sit in a leadership position and have your body in every room. You're not going
Hmm.
to be in every room. You're not going to be in every conversation. So you got to be
Yeah.
able to go and listen. And don't be so gung ho to fix things that you just jump in and you don't actually hear what's going on, because you may come up with all these solutions that do not appropriately fit. Okay.
Mm.
You might come up with stuff that does not align or fit. So the P is process,
Yeah.
that is strategy, that is listen to the people who've been there. Now, if you're in my shoes where there's no one there,
Mm.
now you got to go talk to people who dealt with what you're dealing with, or people that have dealt with some type of crisis,
Yeah.
you know. So that's where your mentors and your coaches come in. Hey,
Yeah.
dealing with this over here. What did you do when you faced this? How did you navigate it?
Mm.
So that's your process. And I could say a lot more about that, but I don't want to take.
Yeah.
And then we get to the R.
Mm.
Once you've acknowledged that you're in crisis, once you have looked at how you're going to manage the crisis, what strategies you can start to implement to get it under control, and you've listened to people involved, now that the process is starting to work a little bit, and it's going to take some time. You might not see it starting to work for a few years in some people's case. But once it's starting to work, now you have to reflect.
Mm.
R in our CPR example is reflection. And you can reflect before you're at the end of it. You can reflect midway through.
Mm.
At the first phase of this, what were we facing? What have we
Mhm.
already created solutions for?
Yeah.
Are those solutions working well? What team members made sure that it was executed well? Because those people right there, those might be my ride or dies. And that's who I got to put on
Yeah.
the phase of this.
Yeah.
I'll stop there, Kimberly, and
Mhm.
let you, tell me what else you want to know. But my advice to women is get into a CPR mode.
Mm. That's really good. And I like that because it can be applied to personal life as well as professional life. So
Mhm.
that's like two different areas that you can apply that to. And my question is, so what and going through all that, what then led to you creating your coaching, your consulting,
Mhm.
wanting to empower women? How did where
Yeah.
that come
So silly me went through these things at the same time.
from?
I went through these things at the same time, and this is where this gets to be a very spiritual,
Mm,
conversation for me.
okay.
All throughout my path were women that saw things in me that I won't say that I didn't 100% see in myself. There are things you see in yourself, there are things you don't.
Hmm.
But there were things that, I had my heart set on, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
And even though I could do that,
Yeah.
I was not operating in my purpose of what I was
Mm,
capable of. You can have several talents, you can have several skills. You can be a creative, you can be a strategic businesswoman, you can be a teacher, you can be
mhm.
all these things. You can be a nurturer, you can be mom,
Yeah.
stay at home mom, and you can have all these gifts. And you can wonder, am I doing the right thing because I have all these gifts? And so I talk about
Yeah.
that and some other things I've done. I've talked about this non-linear path is what I call it.
Mm,
But you get to a point where the signs keep pointing at you and everything
yep.
keeps tugging at you and it's tugging at you and you keep saying, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that.
Hmm.
And I got ready to start a nonprofit.
Hmm.
then a good sister friend, a sister now, but friend at the time that I kind of got to know, reached out to me to help her do some things with her nonprofit. And I said, well, she already had this set up this way. I'm gonna just help her. No sense in me trying to do all this legwork from the ground up, building out a nonprofit. And if you have dealt with that, that's a lot of work to build a nonprofit. So I
Yeah.
said, I'm not gonna do that. I'll help her.
I'm not gonna do that.
But when I was working on it, it never felt complete. It never felt
Mm.
like this is my heart. It felt like
Yeah.
I can do this, is interesting, but it never felt like my heart.
Yeah.
So, as time went on, I was talking to a good girlfriend from church and a few other friends, and I kept saying I wanted to do something with my friends. I wanted to start a business with my friends. At one point, it was going to be, something on the creative side. I bounced around with all kind of stuff. And then I talked to another friend. I said, we're going to just do our podcast because we keep having all these really deep talks and people need to hear our deep talks. And then I got to the point where she was real introverted. So, she wasn't trying to talk to folks. I'm not really a major extrovert. I'm ambivert. But
Okay.
the point is, it started with the podcast. So I was
Mm.
talking to women, and my very first season was women in leadership because that's what I knew.
Okay.
And then the
Mhm.
next season after that went into relationships. And then after that,
Okay.
just kept growing and growing to healing topics. And I'd been asked by so many people, why aren't you doing consulting? Why aren't you doing consult? You can do this. It's your gift. You need to do it.
Mhm.
And I just kept saying, why y'all keep trying to make me do? I don't want to do all that. And they said, but you do
Oh
it
my
now.
God.
You do it naturally. You're doing this naturally. So I
Mm.
said, okay, once I got past the getting the podcast out there, and something
Mhm.
that I have to say here is fear, getting
Mm.
on fear. Then I said, okay, I did the podcast and I didn't know what I was doing, at all. And I learned as I went. I learned and I learned and I learned. And I said, okay, you can do this consulting thing. So I said, okay, let's go ahead and make this an official business. And when I
Mm.
put it out there on Instagram and I got
Mhm.
my business license stuff filed, at that
Mhm.
point, see, I got a problem with failure. So at that point, I was like, okay,
Mm.
you can't you can't drop it now. So then I
Yeah.
felt I have to perform because I've set the bar. So now I got to reach
Yeah.
it. So
Mhm.
had to get over the fear, as many
Yeah.
of us do. And we think we got to have all the things, ducks in a row to do it. But
Yeah.
really, you have to start. You're going to learn,
Mm.
keep learning, and keep learning. You're going to, people, I don't want to launch my website. You're going to keep editing the website and keep editing the
Yeah.
website. Oh, I don't know how to make this do this. You're going to talk to somebody who already doing this
Yeah.
and they're going to show you how to do it. And then you get a business community going to say, hey, why are you doing that? That take too long. Do this way. Have you heard of this platform? Have you heard of this app? You need to do this.
Mhm.
Stop trying to read stuff and record at the same time. You need to download this. It's going to give you a teleprompter. And you just read
Mm.
it. You will learn. You will
Yeah.
learn. Holding yourself pigeonholed to fear is an excuse not to live in your purpose and an opportunity for the enemy to say, see, she ain't never going to mount up to what you want her.
Mhm.
And that's where you have to tell the enemy, no. If
Yeah.
God put this in me, then I have to move and he will give me the tools to move.
That's right. You gotta have faith. You gotta take that step. And a lot of times with purpose, since that's what you're speaking of, he never shows us the entire outline. He'll show you like one. You're like, okay, well then what do I do after that? It doesn't matter. Once you do that step, then he's gonna keep showing you, and then it's gonna go, and then you're gonna see, well, man, I just did one little thing, and now all these things have led to this because he wants you to have faith.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And fear
mm-hmm.
is the opposite of faith.
And
So that is very important.
that's the part, Kimberly. So many
Yeah.
people, they question if they should be doing something. But the
Hmm.
beauty about what you just said, the beauty about that is that you will know if it's something God wants you to do because you will take basically barely a step. I mean, you might
Yeah.
just barely nudge your foot in it. And as soon as you start showing that you're
Yeah.
going to follow Him, everything
Hmm.
else, He'll usher it in. And you're like, whoa, I'm not ready. Opportunity after opportunity will come, and you're like, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. And
Hmm.
confirmation to let you know, no, this is what you're supposed to do. All I need you to do is take one, what is it, grain of a mustard seed. I need you to take one step.
Yes.
If you take
Yes.
one step, then I'm going to send 50. I'm going to send 60, 70 your way. You just take this one step for me. And that to me is what women have to realize. And I keep talking about women because that's my lane.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyone really, that's what
Mhm.
people have to realize, is that you don't need to have it figured out. You don't need to have it all mapped out. You need to be willing to move in the direction that the Lord wants you to go, and He will reveal the map as you walk.
Yeah.
You see it. You don't know where it's going. You cannot see, is it worth it? Is anybody going to call? Is anybody going to sign up? You can't see it, but when you walk, the path starts to become visible.
Very. Oh, so true, so true. I tell my husband all the time, if it's something that like, oh, okay, I'm gonna do this, or I feel like I want to do this. If it's like easy, I'm like, yeah, that's flesh. But when that thing start kind of like trying to, make me not want to do it, or well, hold me back, I was like, okay, yeah, now I know I got to do it because you
Mhm,
don't want to see it come
mhm,
to pass. I said
mhm.
so. I can tell the difference in something that I want to do and something that God wants me to do, and I
Yeah,
can always tell
yeah.
every single time.
And something else that I want to share too,
Mhm.
with women who are struggling with, um, maybe some folks are listening and they want to get into leadership. Maybe some people are listening and they want to start a business. But there may
Mhm.
be people that are in leadership. There may be people that have
Mhm.
started a business already. But they're saying, I hear what y'all saying, but I don't feel that. And
Mhm.
maybe there's something I need to shift and do, but I don't know if I can let this go. I put all this
Yeah,
effort into this. It's like a
yeah,
relationship. I put all this effort into
yeah,
this man, and
yeah,
it's not going that way, but I can't let it go yet because I thought this is the one. I thought this was going to work out.
yeah, yeah.
The people have to be okay with, learning to let things go and trust in what
Mhm.
God is going to do. So if you have built a business,
Mhm.
if you have stepped in leadership in some type of company and it just doesn't quite feel right, and you think
Yeah.
there has to be something different, if this is not,
Mhm.
I don't feel it. Trust that feeling.
Yeah.
That feeling. Pray for wisdom and
Mhm.
discernment,
Yeah.
and ask God to help you start making those steps. And the moment you take the step, remember, the moment you take the step, if that's what He wants you to do, it's going to start unfolding before you have time to catch up. You're going to feel a little
Yeah.
intimidated by it. You're going to
Yeah.
feel very intimidated.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That is so true. That
Yeah.
is so true.
I
Whew.
want to make sure I'm not just talking to people getting started. I want to talk
Yeah.
in it.
Already now.
It's not, and some projects are not necessarily abandoned. Some
Mm.
are revitalized. So
Yeah.
it might be called XYZ today, and it might be called
Mhm.
LMF tomorrow. I mean, you have to say, the way I built this is not working like this. I don't feel like I'm
Mm.
impacting people enough like this.
Okay.
Something has been on my heart to do this business thing or this leadership
Mhm.
thing at my job differently. I need to completely remap it. And that's
Mhm.
okay. That doesn't mean you failed. That means that you, and we talk about this all the time in university life,
Yeah.
or corporate life, really.
Mhm.
That means you're doing a reorganization.
Oh yeah. That's good.
Reorganization. And
Yeah.
that doesn't mean that it didn't work out. Um,
Yeah.
it means that it didn't work out that way, and the
Yeah.
process has to change. The way we're
Yeah.
doing it has to change. The mission is
Hmm.
still the same.
The mission is still the same. Yep. That's good. That's
Mhm,
good. Ooh, that's good. That's so good. Yes.
mhm. And then
Okay.
some people might have to rewrite their mission, though. It depends.
Girl, that's another whole podcast.
It depends on what they were trying to do, you know.
Listen, I'm gonna tell you, I listen, high school, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go to school and be a nurse. I started out being a nursing assistant. Girl, I said, no, ma'am. I am too empathetic to be dealing with patients one on one. Like I'm not built like that.
Yeah.
So that quickly took a turn. But that that was the path that I was headed on, and I felt like it was going great, and I love doing the job. I just couldn't handle that part of it. So I
Yeah.
was like, okay, well, I don't need to go further if I'm already struggling dealing with this, at this level. So we can start out doing something, and we can really be good at it. We can actually love it, but are you built for that? You know
Mm-hmm.
what I'm saying? So you have to kind of look at that
Yep.
and realize you have to do, inventory. Like, okay, no.
And to that point, and I don't know whether I really should say this or not, but to that point, um, I remember telling my leader often, I feel confident in being able to do leadership,
Ooh,
because I like helping and learning people and
yeah.
coaching people.
Mm-hmm.
I like inspiring and motivating people. That managerial part, you can have
Yeah.
that. I
Yeah,
don't
that part.
I don't care to be looking at no time sheets and my clock in, clock out. I don't care about that. I don't care to be going in the supply room and count, do we have
Yes.
that, and this is out of stock and we need it. I don't care to do those things.
Yeah.
Um, I can do the budget. Do I feel like
Yeah.
it? Not really. Um,
Yeah.
and so I thrive when I am connecting and talking to people. And that
Yeah.
a lot of that does have to do with where, We Sweet came into place when I did
Mhm.
start, the consulting part of it, is that I get to really, really thrive in that space as far as
Mhm.
are you built for it. Because
Okay.
in terms of those women who are going into managing your own business, you still got to manage
Yeah. You
legit
do.
your own business. But
Yeah.
in terms of women who are thinking about that or thinking about, moving up into a position at the job, are
Mm.
you built for that? Are you built for,
Mm.
people thinking you're their therapist?
Yeah.
You're not, but
Yeah.
you're not. But are you built for that?
Yeah.
You can be their coach. As
Yeah.
a leader, you can be their coach, but you cannot be their
Mhm.
therapist. And there's a difference.
No,
And that's another
it
conversation
is.
too.
That's a
But
whole nother level.
there's that. There's the managerial part. And the managerial part means sometimes you gotta make very difficult decisions.
Yes.
Do you want to be responsible for that?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the asking yourself, I'm
Yeah.
good at this, or I like this, or I want that opportunity, but am I built for this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's really good. That's really good. And I think another whole layer of that is what environment are you doing that in? Because if you're doing that, which you're good, you're good at it, you're built for it, all that, but it's in a toxic environment, it's not good for you. So then you also have to deal with that. That's another whole thing, another whole podcast episode.
Yeah, yeah, and
Listen.
you got to pray your way through that,
Yes.
because sometimes you have a good paid job.
Woo, girl.
You love what you do. You worked years to get to this,
Yeah.
and there are a lot of good things about it, but the environment
Mhm.
is toxic.
It's toxic.
Are you willing to let
Mm.
go of the money, let go of the prestige of having the role,
Yeah.
and let go of a lot of things that maybe you put into it, the work,
Yeah.
the sweat equity, as they say.
Yeah.
Are you willing to walk away from that because it is jeopardizing your soul?
Yep.
And some people would really, really struggle with that. And some people would say, it is not about the money, girl. I leave tomorrow and start over. But some people,
Mhm.
that is a difficult thing. And it's even more difficult when you come from families where it was struggles for generation in the family
Yes.
on you
Yes.
who made it. And so it's
Mm.
even more difficult.
So many factors. So many factors.
Yeah.
So many
Yeah.
factors.
Toxic leadership, toxic environments, that will
Girl,
really
that'll
cause you not to sleep at night. It will really cause stress, one of the number one
stress
killers.
you out. Yep.
It'll do all those things, and it's
Hmm.
not really worth what you were placed here to
Not.
do.
It is not worth it. Girl, listen, I got stories for days about that. I'm tell you about me. I need to be stress free. I don't care about that money. I don't care about that position. I don't care about none of that. If
Yes.
you're stressing me out, no ma'am, I can't function because
Mhm.
stress affects so many different things in our body, and people
Yeah.
don't realize that. People
Yeah.
don't realize that. Like you said, number one, sleep, girl. You can't sleep at night. You can't function. Your mind is cloudy. You can't think clearly. You can't
Yeah.
make good decisions. Like
Yeah.
you're irritable. Like there's so many things that come from just not sleeping. That's just one thing. So
Yeah.
just imagine,
Yeah.
it's not worth it. It's not. And
Yeah.
as you said, stress is the number one killer. And I tell people
Hmm.
all the time, you gotta
Yeah.
be stressed.
And then you
You
just
gotta do
existing. You just existing because
it.
you're not whole in any other space. You're not whole in your partnership. You're not whole with your children. You're not whole
Yeah.
with your friends. You're there, but you just zombie. You're not really
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
And when you're trying to, as you said, when you're trying to sleep, the
Mm-hmm.
brain won't shut off. It doesn't shut off.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you manage to shut it off, you start dreaming about the job.
Exactly. It's like, Lord have
Yeah,
mercy.
it can get the
Oh
best.
my
Some
God.
people, well, what do you do? What do you do? I can't just leave right now. I'm not in position to do that. You have to create coping mechanisms until you
Mm.
you
Come
have to
on, girl.
create coping mechanisms until you go. Coping mechanisms may be I do not answer my phone after this time. I do not look at emails at
Exactly.
this time. Coping mechanisms are, on the weekend, if you're a person that have, traditional 9 to 5, on the weekend, do not contact me.
Yeah.
I will not respond.
That's right.
Monday, coping mechanism may be I need to go do lunch with a girlfriend every Wednesday. Could be I need to call my mentors. Could be I need to get in therapy and have biweekly therapy
Hmm.
appointments. You have to create, and I'm gonna go back to it, strategies.
Yeah.
You want to
That's true.
survive something like that and not have a heart attack, because that's what stress will lead to,
Girl, listen.
aneurysm, something like that. If you want to survive it, you got to have coping mechanisms so you're
Yeah.
eating healthy and you're getting rest and your body is not
Hmm.
in overdrive.
Yeah. That is so true. That is so true.
Hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then sometimes you got to find the coping mechanisms at the job. And some of those
Yeah.
I can talk about. Some of those I can, some of those I can't talk about. But send me an email. I tell you, but you gotta, I can't reveal.
Listen, contact her because she can help you
I can't
outside of the podcast. You can't have documentation of this.
I can't
But
reveal
yeah,
my secrets.
I
No,
know
but
that's right.
seriously though, you do have to have some on the job
Yeah.
type of
Yeah. Yeah.
coping mechanisms.
Hmm.
You have to learn how to say, and I will share this one. I think this is a really good
Hmm.
one. Sometime you have to, if you're working on a project or you're working on something, you got to close out your email.
Yes.
Close that email. Because if you hear it ding, 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 what are you going to do? What's your heart? What's your heart gonna do when you're already stressed out and you're stressed out with that
Yeah.
particular manager or that particular coworker, and those
Yeah.
seem to be the ones sending all the emails, and now your heart, because they already were on your last nerve. So what you gonna do? And it's not just them, but I'm just saying examples.
Yeah.
Close your email so you can't hear it going off like that. You won't see it popping up with a little notification on this.
Yeah.
And then if I need an hour to just work peacefully and I don't
Yeah.
have to talk to them, I don't have to hear from them, now you got to come back to it.
Yeah.
That's why it's
Eventually.
a coping mechanism. You can't get away from it
Hmm.
and leave. But you gotta come back to it and then come back to
Yeah.
it refreshed.
Yeah.
Have your
Yeah.
little chamomile tea, your nerves are calm
Yeah.
now. And now when you have to deal with, chaotic Karen, now you're in place to do that.
Sure.
Now you're in
Oh,
a
that is
now you're
hilarious.
in a place to do that because
Yeah.
you let yourself calm down.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Girl,
And then
that is
let
so
me
funny.
because I know this is a stigma in society. Please let me make sure I say this is no offense to anybody named Karen. I
Yeah.
could have said, dramatic Dequies. Okay, so don't take that personal. Don't take that personal.
Oh my gosh. Absolutely. Girly. Okay, so I wanted to talk about one more thing. So, how did you end up writing your book? Like,
Hmm.
what made you say, okay, you know what? I need to put some information out here.
So the book is coming. It hasn't
Okay.
been published yet because I want it right. I want it right.
Okay.
But what made me do it is this conversation, navigating the story. And
Yes.
I like to help emerging female leaders in my
Mhm.
consulting business. And I also help other women, that aren't necessarily emerging leaders, but they
Okay.
have businesses they've had for quite some time. They just need
Yeah.
to restructure some things or need help doing certain things. But I have a very passionate space for emerging women leaders. And so the book came because I saw what I went through.
Mm.
And I wanted other women, especially those like me that were highly empathetic. I'm very, high empathy.
Yeah.
And it's
Mhm.
cutthroat when you are in an organization, especially large organization
Mm.
that has
Mhm.
historically been designed and led a certain way where people don't necessarily look like you. And
Mm.
I don't just mean African American or
Yeah.
any other person of
Yeah.
color. I'm
Yeah.
talking even female,
Yeah. Yeah.
sometimes you don't even have females that are in that space.
Yeah. That's
So
true.
whatever the case may be, and the book is not written to a culture dynamic, it is written to a
Okay.
female dynamic. But
Okay.
I wrote it because I wanted people to have some type of support and
Mhm.
guide for things you will face. Is not going to solve problems. The book is
Yeah.
not going to solve it, but it prepares women to face those problems.
Okay.
I can't tell you you're not going to have somebody get upset about a change and not go off on you. That's going to happen.
Exactly.
That's going to
Go
happen.
ahead.
I can't tell you you're not going to get a hateful email that's very condescending. I can't tell you that people are not going to ignore your directives and undermine your leadership. I can tell you those things.
Oh,
I can't
yeah.
tell you that you're not going to sit in a meeting and someone would deliberately talk over you and dismiss you. And as an empathetic person who doesn't really like to assert themselves a lot, that you got to say, hold on,
Mhm.
wait a
Yeah.
minute, I was speaking.
Yeah.
Don't do it like that.
Yeah.
Don't
We
do
don't
it.
want you to do it like that.
I can't tell you that those things are not going to happen. I can't tell you that you will not deal with certain things, but the book does approach some of these things
Okay.
in a way that supports how women will
Mm.
experience some of this stuff. And
Okay.
not necessarily just how, but
Yeah.
encountering it at all. And there's a little bit of
Mhm.
humor in the book too.
Okay.
There's a little bit of humor because it's tough with the transition. So I
Yeah.
wanted to keep it light, but it came about because of my experience. So all the chapters in the book, they
Mhm.
are titled based on what I experienced or things that I observed and knew would be something that could serve as a guide.
Okay.
Would serve as a guide, yeah. So it's down from hiring,
Yeah.
inheriting teams,
Mm.
dealing with owning your public persona. And I will
Mm.
say this, a lot of women don't realize that you will have an image. You will have a public persona. You will have to speak. And sometimes people think that when they go in leadership, they can sit behind their desk and not come
Yeah.
out. But you will have to address people. You have to address people in a very public way. And
Yeah.
that means you have to own your voice. You have to own your posture. And by posture, I mean a confident one. You know,
Yeah.
talk to people like this. Well, good morning. I know we need to deal with. No, you can't do that. Can't do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's a lot in that book,
Mm.
and it has somewhat of a spiritual undertone to it. So I hope to have it. I hope to put it in publication next year. It's been done for a few years, but
Okay.
I just it just feels like my baby, so I keep tweaking it. I keep trying to
Okay.
make it perfect, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's just written to support people who are stepping into that new place.
Okay. Well, that sounds awesome. So what's coming up new? What are some things that you're doing that's on the horizon? We know the book is coming soon. What other things are you working on now that you can let us know?
Mhm. Uh, let me pick something. Um,
Oh my
so
God.
yeah, so I suppose we'll go with coaching because I've been sort of unofficially doing that, but I'm getting ready to officially launch that. So I would say that's coming up. Prayerfully, top of the year, we'll be ready to roll the program out.
Okay.
So that's coming, and I designed the program myself. Um, and this is no discredit to other coaches that have programs that they have themselves gotten certified and used, kind of a framework or a template
Yeah.
from a larger institution. But
Mhm.
no discredit to them. I think that's a great thing. But I chose to build this completely myself.
Mhm.
So, especially for the nature of the work that I do. So,
Yeah.
it's very, very meaningful to me. It's very, very personal to me. I can't say private because I'm going to share it with everybody, but it's very near and dear to me. So, I'm excited to see how or if that will be received well. But I
Yeah.
did build it myself. And that's also just because I haven't just operated in leadership, but I'm faculty as well. So, I
Mhm.
built the coursework myself.
Okay.
Um, so, we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll
We
see.
do believe it's gonna do great and it's gonna help a lot of people. I really want to thank you for, just blessing us today and giving us your nuggets. So much wisdom, so many great things that you said today. I really do believe that it's going to help a number of people. What are ways that people can get in contact with you?
Yes, well, absolutely. Well, first, let me just say thank you, Kimberly. It has been an absolute honor, and I've absolutely had a good time talking to you. You are radiant and just a joy to talk to. You've made this process super seamless for me. So I want to give you your flowers and support Kimberly speaking in any way that I can. So thank you. And then as far as contacting me, I am on Instagram. I'm on Facebook, although I don't really hop on Facebook that much. Um, I'm on Threads. I am on LinkedIn. And then my website is wesweetco.com. And then so that's WESUITECO.com. And then I think my handles are Dr. Dequies L. It might be Dr. period Dequies period L. I think for all my socials are under that. And Dequies is DEQUIES. So that is how people can contact me.
All righty. Well, we're gonna also put that in with the episode, so they'll be able to go like right underneath the episode on YouTube and get all your information and contact you for any help they may need, any business advice, leadership advice, to contact you via social media or your website, all those things. So once again, like I said, I just want to thank you. It has been awesome. I enjoyed being on your podcast a couple of months ago as well. So I'm glad that I could, flip the dynamic and kind of like learn more about you, in this moment. So that's always cool. So I'm grateful for that.
Yeah.
All
Well,
right, guys. Well,
thank
yes, absolutely.
you.
Okay, guys, so I just want to thank everyone for tuning in as usual. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, Kimberly Speaking 8062. Tell a friend, tell a family member. Don't forget to hit that bell for notifications. Until we speak again, be blessed.